heard about a church that was just finishing up remodeling a building that they were so excited to move into. The last big thing they had to do was purchase and install some carpet. So they contacted a carpet salesman who got their budget, heard about the kind of styles they were looking for, and then provided a number of different options that would work for them, their budget and style-wise. When the leadership team of this church made a decision, they called up the carpet guy and they told him what style they had chose. And what they told him is they wanted to go with the cheapest option on the table. And now when he heard this, he was a bit concerned. He pointed out that this carpet would only be good for about 10 years, and then they'd have to go and tear it all out and replace it. And for just a few extra dollars, they could get a carpet that would last longer, and they would still be in and under their budget. Now, the leadership team, as they heard this, their response was this: we aren't concerned about what will happen in 10 years. That will be someone else's problem. We just want the cheapest carpet here and now. Now, when I heard this story, I was instantly frustrated and also instantly disappointed. Why? Because this is a classic example of poor leadership. It's a classic example of leadership nearsightedness. Leadership nearsightedness is when leaders fail to have a vision or a plan for the future. All they're focused on is what's right in front of them in the here and now. Now, as leaders, we need to have a 2020 leadership vision. What is that? Well, a 2020 leadership vision is where we clearly see what's in front of us, what's right here in the moment. But we also can clearly see what's coming ahead, what's off in the distance. You see, we as leaders need to see the present reality of where our church is. This often means we need to understand the day-to-day operations, the month-to-month struggles and opportunities that our church is facing so that we can navigate this. Oftentimes, this is where most of our leadership time, energy, and focus is applied. But as leaders, we also need to be able to look ahead. We also need to be able to see ahead. We need to clearly be able to see what's off in the distance. We need to be able to see and imagine what some of the coming challenges to our church will be, what some of the coming needs to our church will be years down the road, so that we can develop plans in the here and now to help our church meet those future needs, to help our church navigate those future challenges. You and I as leaders need 2020 leadership vision. This is especially true when it comes to leadership development in the church. Now maybe you're thinking, wait a second, why does this have to do with leadership development? Don't we just want to develop leaders in general? My answer would be yes and amen. You see, when we think about leadership development, there's a basic foundation that we are going to want all of our leaders to have. There are basic skills, basic theology, basic character that we will want all our leaders to have. But there will always be a need for specialized development. There will always be a need for certain types of leaders in our church that will need specialized character, specialized skill, specialized knowledge of theology. And so before we start the work of leadership development, it would be wise for us as leaders to sit down and ask the question, what kind of leaders are we going to need in the next year, in the next 3 years, in the next 5 years? And to answer these questions, it's going to take some kind of vision and planning on our behalf as a leadership team. It's going to take you and I as leaders to sit down and prayerfully discuss and consider and develop a vision for our future. If you as a team have done this recently, I would deeply encourage you to pull up your meeting minutes, to look through them, to remind yourselves where you're going and what it's going to take to get there and what kind of needs you're going to face to move the church forward. Now, if you as a leadership team haven't done vision planning recently, if you haven't thought through where you're going, I want to encourage you to put a date on the calendar to sit down as a team and plan out where you see your church moving to in the next year, the next 3 to 5 years, and begin to think strategically about the challenges you're going to face to move your church forward and how you can meet those challenges so that you can move ahead. Our leadership team at my church that I have the joy of pastoring at just had our annual vision and planning meeting where we look through some of the goals and challenges that we are going to face in the years ahead as a church. One of the things that we highlighted as a need for our church that we are focusing on is youth ministry. We as a church for the first time are seeing kids grow up to the point of being teenagers, and we want to meet them as teenagers, as preteens, and begin to mentor and disciple them spiritually. And so we're looking to bring on a youth leader. So our focus for the next year is working with our team to develop a youth leader to help meet the needs and challenges our church will face as we develop a youth ministry. So the question is, where are you going, and what kind of leaders will your future require of you? For some of your churches, maybe part of your vision is developing a small groups ministry. Or maybe you have a small groups ministry, but that groups ministry needs to grow. That means over the next year or maybe 2 years, you're going to develop more small group leaders who can lead small groups. So that means you're going to develop leaders who are specialized in leading small groups. Or maybe your church feels the call to plant a church. And this means that you're probably going to lose some of your best leaders. So as you think about what lies ahead for your church and some of the challenges you're going to face, you're going to want to think about developing all sorts of new leaders, from worship leaders to youth leaders to elders and everything in between. And so you're going to want to think through these type of leaders and what kind of development process you're going to need for each one. Or maybe you're in a church that has a council or eldership team, and you know that the people around those teams won't be there in a couple of years. Maybe their term is coming up, maybe they're moving away, or maybe they're just aging out. They've been on the team for a long time and they're looking to step off. So as these people will step off the team, you need to think ahead and start thinking through, how can we develop leaders to replace these key leaders in our church? Now, if your church has an elder or council team that has term limits, then right here, right now, every few years, you will need new leaders to fill that position. You know what the future need is right here, right now. So this means as you think about leadership development, you need to have an ongoing plan to develop elders or council members so that you have men or women ready to step in and fill those key leadership needs for you. Listen, as leaders, we don't want to ignore the future. The future is not someone else's problem, but our responsibility. So the question is, where are you going? How are you going to get there? And what kind of leaders are you need to develop to ensure your church can move forward and be healthy?